All right, hello grade 8. Today we are going to start 8.4 dividing integers from our textbook. After this lesson, you will be able to determine integer quotients using a number line and apply a sign rule when dividing integers. So we'll get right into it. Dividing integer rules. This is just some review. When you are dividing a positive by a positive, you are going to get a positive. When you're dividing a positive by a negative, your answer will be negative. Similar to if you are dividing a negative by a positive, you are going to get a negative, and a negative divided by a negative equals a positive. So an easy rule of thumb to think about when you're dividing and multiplying by positive and negative integers is if you have a odd number of negatives, you are going to get a negative. If you have an even number of negatives, you are going to get a positive. All right, moving on. Here we have a show you know. The first one is given for you. You have a positive 12 divided by 4, and that gives you 3. Now I want you to pause the video. Quickly do the next 3. Once you're ready, press play. Okay, so here, 12 divided by negative 4. Right away, off the bat, we know that's an odd number of negatives, so our answer has to be negative. 12 divided by 4, 3. Negative 3. Negative 12 divided by 4, right off the bat, we know has to be negative because there's an odd number of negatives. Negative 3. Next one, we have negative 12 divided by negative 4. Even number of negatives, our answer has to be positive. Okay, now we're going to do some modeling using a number line to show what we know. So we have 10 divided by 2. Looking at this number line here, it's all done for us. How does the number line show the quotient, the divisor, and the dividend? So here we need to think back to our terminology that we learned last lesson, and we need to think about our 10 in this case is our dividend. Then we have our 2, which is our divisor. And then lastly, we have our answer or quotient. So looking at this here, how does the number line show the quotient, the divisor, and the dividend? So we'll just start with the dividend. Here we're starting at 0, and we're going to positive 10, which is our dividend. Then we are showing our divisor by splitting that line into groups of positive 2. So that's 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups. And since we are dividing by a positive, our arrow is pointing towards the positive direction. And then ultimately we need to see what our quotient is. Well, that's shown right here, and I'll just draw that out. That's how many groups of positive 2 we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's positive because our arrow is going that way. So that is 5. All right, this next one, we have 10 divided by negative 2. So same concept, it's already done for you, but we're starting at 0, we've drawn a line to show our dividend, which is 10. Then we're dividing by a negative, so our arrow is going to be pointing towards the negative direction here. And then we've split our dividend by our divisor, which is -2, so groups of -2. And we are left with, what is our answer? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups, and we are going backwards, -5. You can always check your answer by thinking about your rules. Positive divided by a negative has to give me a negative. All right, here we have a show you know. I want you to work on these next two, sorry. Pause the video. Once you're done and ready, you can press play. Okay, this first one here. We have 8 divided by 2. So we're going to draw out our line from 0 to 8. That's step 1. Step 2, we are dividing by a positive. So we put our little arrowhead pointing towards the positive direction. Then we need to split 8 into groups of +2. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. Answer is 4. Next one. We are starting with +6. So we start at 0. We draw out our line to 6. Then we look at, what are we dividing by? A negative. So we need to put our little arrowhead pointing towards the negative direction. So the negative, that's showing our negative, and we are splitting it into groups of 3. -3. 1, 2. How many groups do we have? We know it needs to be negative because a positive divided by a negative gives us a negative. We are left with -2. Okay, this last one here. We have a negative divided by a negative. So we are going to draw -10, starting at 0. We draw our line to -10. We are dividing by a negative. Our arrow points towards the negative direction. Then we have to split -10 into groups of -5. So that's -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Shown there. And now, it's asking, a negative divided by a negative, we know it's going to be a positive. How many groups of -5 goes into -10? Well, we've drawn it right here, and that is 2. +2. All right, this is the last question. Show you know. Model -12 divided by -4. I want you to pause the video. Do this question on your own. Press play when you're done. Okay, so we are going to start at 0, like always. We need to draw out our straight line for -12. Don't actually have enough, so I am going to add best I can. It's -11, and that is negative 12. Okay, so we have drawn our negative 12. And we are dividing by a negative. So our arrowhead is going to go right at the end, pointing in a negative direction. And then we need to split negative 12 into groups of negative 4. So that's negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, negative 4, and there's another one. So how many groups of negative 4 go into negative 12? Well, we've drawn it out. 3 groups. We know it has to be positive because negative divided by a negative is a positive. All right, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. And you are welcome to watch this video over as many times as you need.